pattern readers. Welcome to this discussion of episode 205 of The Wheel of Time. As I have been doing this season, I'm going to be discussing the episode, not necessarily breaking down every single detail, but focusing mainly on the most important adaptation choices that are being made. What is going to work as a choice on screen that might be different from what works in a book series. So in these videos, I do make some comparisons to things that are different in the books, but at the same time, I'm trying to keep this reasonably safe to watch, even if you're not a book reader. If you're currently reading the books, I don't recommend watching these videos unless you have read through book 3, because season 2 generally covers a lot of things that are in books 2 and 3. But if you're someone who's not reading, isn't really planning to read, you can definitely watch most of these videos. And if there are specific points where I mention something that's more of a reveal that you don't know about yet, I always let you know so you can skip that little part of the video and not be spoiled. I'm not someone who usually ranks things per se, but I do think this episode might be my favorite in the season overall, and that this season overall is stronger compared to last season. The only thing I missed in this episode was Mat and Min. I would have loved to have had some of them too, but of course not every character can be featured in every episode. I look forward to more of them in future episodes. Everything that was in this episode, I really enjoyed. So I just wanted to really quick talk about why season 2 might be working a little bit better than season 1. I think that's the general consensus that I'm seeing around the fandom, and even from some people who didn't like season 1 who are enjoying season 2. So why might that be? And one thing I want to point out is that season 2 was fully written and already being filmed when season 1 came out. So they didn't necessarily change all that much that they were already planning on doing from season 1. So there's probably some other things that would contribute to that improvement. Number one, season 2 had a bigger budget than season 1, so that always helps a little bit. And then there's just the fact that there's always a learning curve in the first season of any show, some things that are being worked out as they go. So I think a lot of shows are not peaking in season 1. They're finding their footing, and as they go on, hopefully things kind of settle in and they find their rhythm. The book material that they're drawing from primarily in this season, books 2 and 3, is stronger material overall compared to book 1. Book 1 is a pretty kind of straightforward adventure plot, more solely focused on a single character, when the whole series is very much an ensemble series, which starts to come into play more in books 2 and 3, even more so in books 4 and beyond. But books 2 and 3 start to spread out the storylines and just get more interesting storytelling. So that is being reflected in this season as well. Finally, in season 1, they had some issues related to COVID where they had to interrupt filming for a while, and then that affected some of the things that they wanted to do that they couldn't in the final 2 episodes of the season. And they found themselves unexpectedly without one of their main actors and had to rewrite around that. Of course, the Mat who was cast for season 1 left, didn't return for those last 2 episodes, and they didn't have him to work with, so they had to write around his absence. So all of that, I think, goes into explaining why the show is a lot more solid this season. I really enjoyed season 1 too, but I do think there are some notable improvements in some specific areas in season 2, and I'm excited to see that the show is just getting better and better all the time. But that said, now let's get into some of the specifics of this episode. The Seanchan cold open begins pulling back the curtain on this culture that we have so far only seen from the perspective of the people of the Westlands who are being invaded. In this episode, we begin to learn more about their beliefs and practices and societal structure. I have to say the musical theme for the Seanchan is one of my favorites. It is so distinct and I often find it running through my head. I'm so glad we are able to get this establishing shot of Falm to really give us a perspective on the city and why the Seanchan would attack and hold it as the base for their invasion. We see other members of the Blood, the Seanchan nobility, with shaved sides of their heads, including tattooing, and lengthened nails not as long as Suroth or Turok. This is also our first good look at another class of Seanchan slaves, probably called Dakovale, based on the sheer white they are wearing, a detail taken from the books. Here we are first introduced to High Lord Turok, who stands above High Lady Suroth in the Seanchan hierarchy. While Suroth is allowed to speak through her voice Alwyn to anyone else, to Turok she is denied this privilege. If it wasn't already clear, we see that Suroth really follows Ishamael over Turok. Her long nails are cut as a symbol of her status being lowered for punishment of a mistake. And we have the return of Padan Fain, presenting Turak with the Horn of Valir, as he did in the book, but this time clearly not of his own volition, but under the direction of Ishamael. Fain seems less of a loose cannon at this point, but that probably gives him room to evolve. We get a better look at these strange black spots in Lanfear's eyes, and the power she uses to heal herself is inky black, visual indications that this is a different kind of power. We also get to finally see Lanfear fully unmasked. I have a feeling from the first words she says when she revives that Moiraine is climbing the ranks of her target list. If Moiraine is ruthless and trying to protect Rand, Lanfear is downright brutal, without necessity. Moiraine is far more candid with Rand than she seems to have been previously. She doesn't hesitate to tell him that Rand set Ishamael free at the Eye of the World. She lays stakes on the line very starkly. Rand freed Ishamael freed Lanfear, and she believes if all the Forsaken are freed, the last battle will be lost. I'm going to put that last part down to an unreliable narrator. Just because Moiraine believes that doesn't make it true. But again, stakes. And this is laying a lot on Rand, since he can trace all of that back to something he did. Now, he honestly did the best he could, under Moraine's guidance, and with the little knowledge and ability he had. But this should at least make him want to start repairing himself, stat. Moiraine also drops some key information on something the show has been working up to explaining this season, that there is a world of dreams. Some scenes we have seen have taken place there, even if we didn't know it at the time. And Lanfear is extremely powerful there. And real harm can come to people in the world of dreams. Moiraine also mentioning Lanfear being known for casual cruelty was a good line because we just saw that on display with her sewing the mouth of one of the stable masters shut, so it reinforces the point. On the other hand, Moiraine does not tell Rand that she can't channel, so she is still keeping some secrets, lest we forget. We are introduced to the character of Barthanes Damodred in a very different way than the books. He is Moraine's nephew, set to marry the queen, and he seems genuinely sweet and fond of Moiraine, as both Moiraine and her sister comment on later. Moiraine actually tries harder to talk to him like family. Now I'm going to mention a spoiler from book 2 that I recommend skipping if you haven't read, because a plot point for this season could be spoiled. So skip ahead to this timestamp to avoid that. In the books, Barthanes is a dark friend. Rand meets him at a party and he passes a message from Padan Fain to Rand. And I am very curious if he is going to turn out to be a sweet-faced dark friend in the show, or if the show could have made a change and perhaps his mother Anver is the dark friend instead. I do think one of them will turn out to be. And I would be sorry to learn it about either of them. So again, the show is doing a really good job of making me care about characters who are potential antagonists. Anver gets put to good use again, helping draw out Moiraine to talk about her fears and work through her problem of what to do about Lanfear. Perrin very quickly discovers that Elyas' view of humans is completely different from his own. Elyas seems to feel minimal kinship with humans, as he tells Perrin that none of his friends or even his wife were of his pack. I think this goes further than Elyas' view in the books, although I can't be sure. He seems to get along more easily with humans in the books, at least, but it is possible that he still wouldn't risk himself for anyone who isn't a wolf or wolf brother. But he crosses a line with Perrin, and so Perrin may have just as quickly lost a potential mentor. But he hasn't lost Hopper, and I am so happy that Hopper chose him. Hopper guides Perrin to go back to Atuan's mill with the goal of burying Uno. It seems like Hopper accepts Perrin's loyalty to his friends and is treating Perrin like a pack leader. I also think Perrin probably needed to be separated from Elyas and the wolf pack in order for him to make connections with Dane Bornhald and Aviendha. The scene Perrin finds here is taken nearly directly from a scene in Book 3, where Perrin encounters a different Aiel being kept in a cage in a village filled with white cloaks. But we have some different characters involved here. The Aiel is Aviendha, a maiden of the spear. The white cloaks include Dane Bornhald, son of Jeffrem Bornhald, who we met in Season 1. Both Bornhalds have been set up as more reasonable white cloaks, potentially in opposition to the absolutely fanatical Valda, who also makes a return in this episode. It makes a lot of sense to change this fairly life-altering moment in Perrin's story to include characters the show has a higher priority to develop. I don't think anyone would object to Dane Bornhald or Valda being included, but some book fans lament the change from a character named Gaul to Aviendha, because Gaul is a character that a lot of book fans enjoy, although he is by no means as crucial to the series as a whole as Aviendha is. And I do understand why fans of Gaul and Perrin's friendship would be disappointed that their iconic meeting was given to a different character. Now, I don't think that means they can't introduce Gaul later. I think they still can. I don't necessarily think Aviendha is going to take over his entire role when she has her own parts to play. And I think we just have to recognize that there was simply a higher priority to introduce Aviendha at this point in the story than there is to introduce Gaul. I really enjoyed that Dane makes some overtures of friendship before Perrin realizes that he has a white cloak. I think this is going to be an important relationship, and this episode sets it up nicely. But the way the tension immediately ratchets up when we hear Valda's voice is testament to how well the show has set him up as a villain. Perrin, of course, sets Aviendha free and says, as he also does in the books, people shouldn't be in cages. It's a definite character theme for Perrin. Perrin thinking he would have to protect Aviendha is funny, and we get another iconic line. Perrin Ibarra, do you like to dance? The fight scene against the White Cloaks was fun. I'm not someone who usually has a ton to say about fight scenes, but it was just great to see Aviendha in action. I like that she mostly went for pain points to disable them since they were so outnumbered, stuff like cracking wrists. I also really like that Perrin makes the argument not to kill Dane, to show him mercy, because he had seen that the man has some kindness in him. That will certainly come up again. But also, Dane has now seen Perrin's yellow eyes, as Valda did before, so he's bound to have some thoughts on that. The next day, Perrin's scene with Aviendha gives us much more information on the Aiel, what their threefold land means to them, that she is searching for their chief of chiefs called the Karakarn, and that they live by something called Ji'ato, which is why Aviendha now owes Perrin her life and will go wherever he wills. Aviendha laughing at Perrin's confusion and doing a little light flirting is so cute. I already love her character. These are characters who didn't have a lot of interaction in the books, so there's a lot of novelty to explore here, and it's already a combination I'm really enjoying. Verin and her fellow brown sisters brought me so much joy in this episode, which, let's face it, we really needed. I love this episode, but it was intense, and everyone is going through it. But we get the brown Aja detective agency, so all is well. Verin might have a task to undertake for Moiraine, but that doesn't stop her from relentlessly seeking information on Egwene and Nynaeve, even when stymied. The scene with Sheriam should raise some eyebrows, at least at first. She seems confused or nervous, and she gives information the audience knows is false. Yasica helps Verin determine that the entry in Sheriam's book about Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elayne leaving the tower for Elaine's brother's birthday party was strangely written. Verin suggests that it could be because a weave of compulsion had been used on Sheriam. This is a new concept in the show and an important one to introduce. It's not fully explained, except that it breaks the 3 oaths. But as it sounds, it's a weave to force someone to do something. It can even change memories. And in this scene, we have 2 Aes Sedai outwardly discussing that the Black Aja are real, something Aes Sedai usually avoid discussing at all costs. And I love that they don't let it deter them in the slightest. I was truly surprised that Liandrin spoke openly with Nynaeve about being Black Aja. I thought since Nynaeve and Egwene and Elayne had been knocked out, they might stay that way until Liandrin had left them so they wouldn't have hard proof against her. But since they did choose to do a full reveal, I am very glad that they continued giving Liandrin depth and letting her and Nynaeve be foils for each other. Liandrin, we finally can say without any doubt, is sworn to the shadow. She has evil intent, but she makes some points that allow the audience to still have some understanding for her, the 3 oaths being used to allow men not to feel lesser against Aes Sedai. She's not wrong there. But Nynaeve also makes a good point. Whatever price Liandrin had that led her to join the Dark, what does she really have to show for it? In this scene between Surath and Ishamael, it is interesting that Surath immediately backs off challenging him when he reminds her he knows why she swore her oaths to the Dark. It seems like that will come up again, and it's another way the show continues to remind us that every Dark friend has their reason. The reasons are different. Some might be compelling, some might be petty, But people sworn to the shadow aren't a monolith, and the show seems interested in exploring what might make someone turn to the shadow. That is something I appreciate. Evil is human. Evil has a face. Evil is varied. Evil isn't always easy to resist and condemn. Liandrin bringing Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elayne to Suroth is a scene very similar to one in the books, even down to revealing that Suroth and Liandrin both serve the same master. What has been added is Liandrin calling out the abomination of chaining women who can channel and calling them Damane. It allows Suroth to give the Seanchan justification that Sul'dam, who are the women who control Damane, have somehow earned the right to wield the One Power. Seanchan see Damane as essentially animals, and the power is dangerous and horrible, but their entire society rests upon using the power of Damane in battle. They justify these conflicting views through that one-step remove of using Sul'dam instead of allowing Damane to control their own power. It is also interesting to see Liandrin and Suroth, two women who hate each other on principle, have to work together in service of the shadow. But it seems like really they're each imagining their own power will eventually grow enough that they could subjugate the other. Just in case you had started feeling totally comfortable just hating Liandrin after she is willing to leave Nynaeve and the others to people who enslave channelers, she uses a tiny weave to release them before she leaves through the Waygate. Did she do it because she cares about Nynaeve, because she hates Suroth and the Seanchan, or for some other end? It's definitely not what Ishamael told her to do. She even gives Nynaeve one last look. Nynaeve isn't able to channel, an effect of her block. Elayne and Egwene try to defend themselves, but Egwene is still caught, just as she is in the books. The look in the Damane's eyes as she captures her is so gut-wrenching. She looks dead inside, but there is still pain. In Falme, Nynaeve and Elayne have a brief bit of conflict because Elayne knows more about their situation than Nynaeve does, and Nynaeve never takes orders easily, especially from someone she really doesn't know at all yet. One thing that is consistent with Nynaeve's character is that she always has walls up with everyone except the very few people she loves and cares for. Once she cares for someone, she would literally do anything for them without hesitation. But Elayne isn't in her circle at this point. Rather than the two of them staying on their own as they do in the book, they are quickly found by a yellow sister and her warder. I think we will soon see the reason for that choice, but I'll wait to comment on that until we do. Verin confronts Liandrin, and in such a Verin way, lets her know she sees right through her asparagus-related alibi, which is just hilarious. And I'm sorry, but Liandrin's little smile when she mentions Nynaeve, I just feel there is some real feeling there. She's got a crush on Nynaeve. There, I said it. Liandrin also immediately jumps in with a story about a royal envoy to Caemlyn being attacked, which should raise Sisters in the Tower to send out inquiries after the 3 missing initiates. That also feels like something she is doing on her own. I don't think she really wants them in the hands of the Seanchan, and she is using Verin's inquiries as a way to try to undo what she was forced into. I know it sounds like I am a major Liandrin apologist, and the show has kind of turned me into one, a feat I would have never thought possible. And the truth is, she still sucks, but it's a lot easier to just hate someone for the terrible things they do, and I think it's a lot more interesting to see the nuance behind it. I also love how much we can read into Verin's expression, listening to Liandrin and clearly not taking one word she says at face value. One of the best scenes in the episode was getting to see Lanfear and Ishamael playing around in the world of dreams. She teases him by pretending to be Rand. We get insight into how each of them thinks about using people, and that there's no real trust between the two of them. A couple of other Forsaken are name-dropped, and Lanfear mentions compulsion again. It's the first time Ishamael talks openly about his real philosophy, that the wheel itself must be destroyed to end the cycle of suffering. We have hints that Ishamael has been active for far longer than just since Rand confronted him at the Eye, as we do in the following scene when Turok references the time he has spent in Seanchan. And we get Lanfear's assessment of Rand and Ishamael's of the other 4 ta'veren. Though again, I think we should always leave room for some doubt about how much truth is in whatever Ishamael says. Perrin is clearly just beginning his journey as a wolf brother, so saying he will soon be more wolf than man doesn't hold up. So when he says Mat was born his, I'm not buying it. Nynaeve does fear power, that much is true, and whether Egwene craves it, we'll have to see there as well. For now, we only get a glimpse of the pain awaiting Egwene as we see her collared as a Damane. The final scenes again have Moiraine being candid with Rand, telling him that Lanfear loved Lews Therin and he her at one time. She became a dark friend after he broke her heart to try to get him back, at least according to what is believed to be known of her. She encourages but doesn't pressure Rand to let Lanfear think he loves her now, to use her feelings to try to find out anything he can. Rand seems to respond to Moiraine with some candor as well, admitting he thinks not everything between him and Lanfear had been a lie. This is real progress for Rand and Moiraine, being more open with each other, and Moiraine giving him more of a choice. Once again, she stands by him while he puts himself in danger. I don't think this means there will be total trust between them going forward, but it is nice to see some progress of this nature. It is part of their arc with each other in the books, but it is very slow going and stretched out over multiple books. The very end of the episode, seeing Lanfear reveal herself to a captive Rand in the world of dreams is so tantalizing. We all have to wait for more, but it is a brilliant way to end an episode. So let me know your thoughts on this episode. I feel like a lot happened. A lot of book lore was introduced. Even if it was brought in very different ways than we saw in the books themselves, we're still getting those concepts introduced. And I think that's something that book fans were really excited to see. And what I noticed is that after this episode, a lot of book fans were especially feeling like this episode felt like the Wheel of Time. And I think it's because they managed to weave in so much world building, so much lore that came from the books, but they found their own ways of introducing those concepts in the show, which is so key. Leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts. Subscribe, if you will, for more Wheel of Time content. And as always, gird your loins, my friends.